All right.
My name's Ener Quick question. How many of you made a New Year's resolution to eat better? All right. You do any research about what's good for you? Okay. Well, if you had, maybe you came across a term called GMOs. And maybe you came across a couple articles that told you that GMOs were bad for you. And I'm here to tell you that it's not the case. My claim of fact is GMOs are safe to consume. I will be defining what GMOs are for those of you who don't know. I will be explaining how it is the GMO process is similar to selective breeding, which we have been using for thousands of years. And I'll present studies that show just how safe GMOs are. Okay, so first of all, what are GMOs? GMOs stand for genetically modified organisms, and a better explanation is GMOs are any organism whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. Most people get a little freaked out by this. They don't like the idea of food being tampered genetically, and they want really natural food. But the truth is that most of the food, if not all of the food you buy, is not natural. To quote Columbia University doctorate Neil deGrasse Tyson, if I may, practically every food you buy in a store for consumption by humans is genetically modified food. There are no things as wild seedless watermelons. There are no things as wild cows. See, what people perceive as natural is not. It's been tampered by farmers, not in a bad way, just in a way that makes them sweeter, healthier, and so on. Okay, so my second point, selective breeding. Selective breeding is that process of taking two similar species and crossing them over to create healthier, bigger, stronger, juicier fruits, vegetables, and so on. This process is very similar to what GMO companies like Monsanto do. They just do it in a more molecular level. To quote Laura Tarantino of the Food and Drug Administration, the method of breeding, including the genetic engineering, in and of itself, per se, does not make the food substantially different from non-engineered foods. This was on the topic of why GMOs are not labeled, because they are not really any different than any food you buy anywhere else. And just like all foods you buy at the store, GMOs are tested for safety. My third point, the World Health Organization is a specialized agency of the United Nations who's concerned with international public goods. And one of the tests they run for checking how any product is okay for you is by detecting the level of toxicity. A 2003 report by the Society of Toxicology, that is a learned society based in the United States in support for scientific inquiry in the field of toxicology, kind of wording, sorry, stated that the level of safety of current BD, biotechnically derived food, to consume appears to be equivalent to that of traditional foods, or foods that have already been in the market or are all natural. Other things they do are the WHO test for the stability of inserted genes, and which is what GMOs essentially are, foods with genes transferred into them. But the Government Accountability Office, that is an independent agency of the United States and is a part of the US government, concluded that biotechnically experts believe that the current regimen of tests have been adequate for ensuring that GMs, food markets to consumers, are as safe as conventional foods. And and I think it makes it pretty clear that there is no real danger with foods. Yes, it sounds a little weird that they genetically modify the food, but it's really no different than any anything we've been doing for thousands of years, like mixing crops. And that's it.
All right, let me start with the secondary points first because I think there's a little bit of an issue. They sound like explanations and expository points rather than claims, especially the first two. The first one's basically just a definition. It's not until you get toward the end that you start making an inference about safety, and I think the third point is the one that is making the argument. Everything else seems like it's background information. You do have a very clear statement of what your purpose is, though. I mean, I understood the proposition right away that it's safe for people to consume, and that's fine. Now what we need to know are the different ways that we know that it's safe to consume. And basically all of that fits into that third point that you've got, where you're just relying on the government agencies, the World Health Organization running those tests. If there's not any other way to do that. I think on the second point you have a connection to this, the idea that you're drawing an analogy to this is just like traditional kinds of farming, only it's been accelerated a little bit because instead of crossbreeding and specialized raising of things, they're just doing it at a molecular level, but it is functionally the equivalent. That, I think, helps make that argument, but what your claim doesn't say that. It just describes what's going on here. The claim should say, the use of molecular alteration of the genes is as safe as traditional breeding techniques are. That would make an inference, and that would be a little bit clearer. Still leaves the first point as just background information defining what's going on there. So the third point is where most of your argument is. The second point, there's an argument there, but you need to make it a little bit more clearly. First point's not really an inference at all, it's just background information. So I think you could put that in the introduction. Like I said, you had a very clear statement of the proposition. I think that you need a little bit more statistical data here, but you did a nice job citing, like I said, the GAO, the World Health Organization. You had an expert that talked about how this is functionally equivalent, and I thought that was okay. It's a good primer on this sort of information. I do think that there are criticisms of genetically modified organisms that have been made that are a little bit more specific, and because you're not operating at a specific level, that means that the refutation speaker is going to have some ability to make those arguments, and you don't get a refutation of the refutation, so that's a little bit problematic. And in the debates later on, remember we're doing this in part to get you ready for the debates. I think you need to be able to anticipate that a little bit more, and that's why you need to be a little bit more aggressive in making some of those secondary claims. I think you're missing another claim out there that really attacks the arguments being made against genetically modified foods. All right, thank you.